You're not an inventor, Claire. You're a note-taker with delusions of code. That's what Darren hissed at me, in front of the entire damn department, after I dared to suggest a workaround to his bloated cloud redundancy plan. The man with a Bluetooth headset permanently welded to his ear, and an ego large enough to need its own parking spot, had just erased 6 months of my life with one sneer and a coffee-scented exhale. I sat there, red Sharpie clenched in my hand like a weapon, while he laughed and clicked the remote to move on to another one of his PowerPoint abominations, titled Disruption Through Synergy. I wish I was kidding. The only disruption I wanted was his Wi-Fi cutting out during one of his all-hands Zoom monologues, where he mispronounced asynchronous like it was a brand of vodka. But I didn't flinch, didn't fight, just nodded and scribbled something in my notebook, not about storage architecture, but about the moment a man in a 3 sizes too small confidence suit confirmed exactly who I was dealing with. Let me back up. For 15 years, I played the quiet game, R&D lead on paper, but glorified spreadsheet janitor in reality. I sat in glass rooms under flickering fluorescence, watching my ideas get laundered through Darren's executive filter and spat out with his name on the slide deck. I wasn't the face of innovation. I was the invisible backbone. You know, the one expected to keep the whole circus upright while the ringleader strutted around snorting his own mediocrity. But at night, I built something real, something that mattered. A recursive compression algorithm that slashed redundant cloud data like a machete through kudzu. I didn't use the company laptop. I didn't use company hours. I coded on my ancient Dell, the one with the missing M key and a screen held together by sticker glue and spite. Every version was timestamped. Every function block had its own changelog. Every commit message read like a diary of a woman boiling slowly in a cubicle she had long since outgrown. And listen, I know 97% of you are lurking in the shadows, listening to these stories like it's a guilty pleasure podcast while that subscribe button sits there lonelier than a printer in an open office on a Friday. Don't be that person. A tap means more than you think. Keeps the stories coming, keeps the petty alive, keeps the team caffeinated. Anyway, back to Darren the credit thief. He never asked about my side project. Didn't even know I could code in anything beyond Excel macros, despite the fact that I'd once rebuilt a corrupted dev environment while he was out networking at a golf simulator bar. He thought of me as the human Clippy, there to remind him of meetings and occasionally proofread his LinkedIn humble brags. But I kept working. Quietly. Furiously. One night after he'd humiliated me in front of the interns for overcomplicating a simple storage issue, I stayed late. The cleaning crew had started vacuuming around my desk. I was hunched over, adding a final touch to the compression protocol, something elegant, efficient, and so absurdly powerful it felt illegal to keep it on a flash drive in my sock drawer. The next day I cracked. Not publicly, not with tears. Just a small, stupid moment during a late budget meeting when I muttered, almost offhand, I think I've found a way to shrink our cloud bill by 40%. I even had the courtesy to say we, as if he'd ever lift a finger. Darren's eyes lit up like a raccoon spotting a half-eaten burger. Oh really? He said, spinning in his Herman Miller throne. Interesting, Claire. Let's talk about that more next week. He never did, but you know what did happen. 1 week later, I got a Slack notification. Darren Gallagher added a file to the patents folder, Raven Code Preliminary Filing Draft. My stomach dropped. I clicked it, read it. And there it was, my algorithm, my formatting, my logic flow. Even my comments in the margin. Refactor this if loop, to brute force. Line by line, he'd copy-pasted my work into a PDF, slapped the company logo at the top, and signed it Darren Gallagher, Chief Innovation Officer. That's when the real Claire woke up. No more middle management ego trips. No more lunchroom snubs or being introduced as Claire from Ops. No more compliance PowerPoints and fake smiles while he collected bonuses off my back. That night, I opened a new folder. Its title, The War File, and I started documenting everything. It was a Tuesday, one of those bland, decaffeinated afternoons where time melts and meetings blur into a beige smear. Darren had just wrapped up a 30-minute tangent on synergizing vertical bandwidth, which, in plain English, meant absolutely nothing, when he glanced at me, probably out of boredom more than curiosity, and asked if anyone had creative solutions to cut back-end costs. I should have kept my mouth shut, but something in me twitched. Maybe it was the stale tuna salad in my stomach, maybe it was the death by spreadsheet I'd endured for the past week, or maybe it was watching yet another 24-year-old manchild get praised for suggesting AWS auto-scaling, which we'd already been doing for 2 years. I opened my laptop, pulled up a simulation, and said, casually, like I wasn't about to dig my own grave, I've been working on a compression protocol at home. It's early, but initial testing shows about a 40–45% reduction in redundancy footprint. You'd think I farted Mozart. Darren straightened in his chair like he'd just spotted Jesus in the analytics dashboard. That's fascinating, Claire, he said, lips curling into that salesman grin that always made me feel like a coupon in his pocket. You should definitely explore that further. No one else said a word. I saw 2 interns share a glance, but I didn't know what it meant. Not yet. By Thursday, he asked me to send over whatever I was comfortable sharing. He framed it like a favor, just for exploratory purposes. No pressure, said we'd loop in engineering once he had a chance to digest the framework. I sent a stripped-down overview, no code, just logic, just enough to prove viability, but not enough to replicate. That was the last I heard from him directly, until Monday. I was halfway through my morning coffee when my Slack pinged. A shared channel update, Darren Gallagher uploaded. Raven Code Prelim Patent PDF. I opened it, heart already hammering in my chest like a warning drum. It was mine, not just the structure, not just the theory. Every damn paragraph, lifted like a purse from a distracted diner. Even my typos were in there. Hadn't even bothered to change the variable names. Just replaced my name with his and stuck a half-assed confidential intellectual property watermark across the bottom like that made it legit. I stood up so fast I nearly spilled hot coffee on Barb from accounting. I walked straight to his office. No knock, no small talk. Darren, I said, holding my phone with the PDF open. Explain this. He didn't flinch, didn't even pause his typing. Oh, that, yeah. We're just locking in provisional coverage while we explore partnerships. You know how these things move fast. Don't worry, Claire. It's all company property anyway. I laughed. One of those dark little chuckles you let out when you finally realize the monster isn't in your head, it's in the next cubicle. I built that outside office hours, I said, on my own machine, on my own time. He leaned back, hands behind his head like a smug Hallmark villain. Claire, let's not split hairs. You presented it here. It's part of your function. Everything created under this roof belongs to the company. We all contribute. That's rich, coming from a man whose greatest contribution was inventing new ways to delegate blame. I didn't scream, didn't throw his stapler through the window like my reptile brain wanted. I walked out, back straight, and sat at my desk like nothing happened. But something had. Humiliation came later, sitting in my car in the parking garage, staring at my steering wheel like it had answers. 15 years and I still believed merit counted. That if you worked hard enough, documented well enough, you'd be protected. I started crying, not loud. Just a slow leak down the side of my face while the defrost blasted away the fog on my windshield. And then I did what women like me always do. I wiped my face, pulled out a pen, made a checklist. Screenshot the Slack message, download PDF with timestamp, compile every version of the algorithm into an archive, email myself, the metadata trail, start contacting attorneys that night. I opened the war file again and renamed it Asset Reclamation. Because if Darren thought I was going to roll over and watch him cash checks off my blood and bites, he had another thing coming. He just didn't know who the hell he'd stolen from yet. Fired me on a Thursday. Corporate always does its killing midweek, just enough time for HR to mop up the blood and have the lobby feng shuied by Monday. The email subject line said restructuring update, but the meeting invite that followed was a bullet to the gut. 10:30 a.m., conference room D. No coffee, no bagels, just Darren and a junior HR rep who looked like she was auditioning for The Handmaid's Tale, Silicon Valley edition. He opened with a sigh like he was the one being let go. Claire, this is hard for all of us. You've been an important part of the team, but given shifting priorities and budget realignment translation, you caught me stealing, and now I need to erase the evidence before it testifies. I didn't say a word, just stared at the potted fern in the corner that had been dying since Q2 of last year, like it knew what this building did to people. By 11:15, my badge was dead. I found out when I tried to use the bathroom, and the sensor blinked red like a traffic stop for the soul. By noon, my email was wiped, my Slack account deactivated, and my desk already occupied by a plant that hadn't even been watered yet. My resignation from reality was efficient, merciless in its velocity. No exit interview, no severance, no security escort, just silence and a final email from HR saying they wished me the best in my future endeavors. And you know what the cherry on top was? The file I named Asset Reclamation had vanished from my desktop. Good thing I kept backups everywhere. I sat in my car again, same damn parking garage, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned bone white. But this time, no tears, just a pulse in my neck that throbbed like a war drum. Fear had left the building. Fire had moved in. It was around 4 p.m. when my phone buzzed. Devnate, hey, don't say I told you, but Darren demoed your Raven Code thing today to Genix Soft, framed it as his Skunkworks pet project. Client was impressed, thought you'd want to know, that was the match. He wasn't just stealing from me, he was monetizing it, selling my code as his innovation to external partners. That wasn't just theft. That was IP fraud wrapped in a PowerPoint with a fake smile and stock photo graphics. And I knew then, if I didn't stop him, he'd bury every piece of my work beneath his legacy-like bones under a manicured lawn. So I went hunting. Dug through my ancient Gmail archive until I found her. Madison Clark, patent attorney. I'd met her 2 years ago at a Women in Tech mixer I almost skipped because I'd worked late cleaning up Darren's API disaster. She was sharp, sarcastic, and had business cards made of titanium, literally. The kind of woman who could sue a bro into a whisper. I called, she picked up, I told her everything. By the end of my story, she paused and said, Claire, you kept all this? Timestamps, backups, chat logs, everything, I said. There was another pause, then a slow exhale. Good, let's burn him to the damn ground. 3 weeks later, the paperwork was in. Not a blog post, not a whisper. Formal patent application, filed under my name, with full documentation. Architecture drafts, version histories, annotated screenshots, email logs with timestamps down to the damn millisecond. Madison made sure it looked like a legal sledgehammer wrapped in velvet. She even had a paralegal design a timeline infographic that would make DARPA weep. No ambiguity. No room for Darren's spin. I remember hitting submit on the USPTO portal while sitting at my kitchen table in a hoodie that smelled like 3-day-old fear, sweat, and burnt coffee. My heart was doing Morse code in my ribs. I half expected a SWAT team to kick in the window and confiscate my laptop. Instead, it was quiet. Clean. Final. Then came the pushback. A letter, printed, embossed. So smug it practically smelled like cigar smoke and cologne marketed as authority. Cease and desist Darren's firm, through their corporate legal goons, claimed I had willfully stolen company intellectual property. That all versions, drafts, and derivative works of Raven Code were conceptualized and created under the employment umbrella of Omega Tech Inc., and as such, were wholly owned by them. They even included screenshots from Slack, where I'd casually mentioned testing a compression protocol, as evidence that the work had been shared in a collaborative workplace environment. They called it constructive contribution via employer resources. I called it bullshit with citations. Madison didn't flinch. She poured herself a Diet Coke, skimmed the letter like it was a poorly written breakup text, and pulled out my employment contract from her color-coded binder of legal doom. Clause 11, subsection C, employee-created materials produced using non-company resources, outside documented work hours, and unrelated to assigned deliverables shall not be deemed proprietary to Omega Tech Inc. Translation, it ain't yours, Darren. Not by a damn bite. We responded within 24 hours. Included with the response was, Git commit logs showing midnight build activity, a photo of the rusty Dell I used. Serial number etched in metadata showing location of each version's save path. C. Users Claire documents Raven backup a signed Slack transcript where Darren told me to stop working on side stuff during office hours from 2 years ago. Madison's email subject line was simply, your move. The next week was war in slow motion. Emails came in daily. Threats disguised as concern. We want to resolve this amicably. Read, we didn't think she'd fight back. Read, we underestimated her. Meanwhile, I barely slept. Every ring of the phone felt like a trapdoor opening beneath my feet. Every browser refresh of the USPTO site made my stomach somersault. But underneath the cortisol cocktail was something else. Something alive. I was scared, yes. But I wasn't silent, not anymore. This wasn't about just a line of code. This was about all the times I was told to let it go. All the stolen credit. All the passive-aggressive meeting invites. All the Claire, can you take notes? While I quietly rewrote backend functions in real time. For once, I wasn't cleaning up the mess. I was drawing the line, and Darren, he just stepped over it with both loafers. The first whisper came from Gina in QA, a spoken to Gina since the Christmas party, where I accidentally spilled spiked cider on her off-brand Uggs. If she was reaching out, something was up. 2 hours later, a former coworker forwarded me an internal memo Darren had circulated. Subject line, in case of external inquiries regarding Claire B. It described me as a disgruntled former employee, exhibiting erratic behavior following termination, and cautioned employees to redirect press or legal inquiries to corporate counsel to avoid reputational exposure. Reputational exposure? The man literally stole a patent. But sure, I'm the fire hazard. Then came the LinkedIn posts. Not from Darren himself, he was too slippery for that, but from a burner profile posing as an industry consultant praising Omega Tech. The comments section read like a country club smear campaign. Sad how some people confuse collaboration with ownership. Saw this kind of entitlement during the AI boom too. Women in tech really need thicker skin. Madison read it all deadpan. She'd seen this playbook before. She sent out cease and desist letters so sharp they could have doubled as dental tools. One by one, the ghost account started vanishing. Darren's digital mudslide slowed, but the damage lingered like a bad Yelp review you can't delete. That's when I called in my ace, Lena Riksek. Investigative reporter, digital scalpel in human form. Lena had been building a series on gendered IP theft in tech, think Whisper networks, NDA chokeholds, and credit laundering at scale. When I told her what was happening, she said 4 words that nearly made me cry. You're not alone, Claire. We met in the back booth of a bookstore cafe where old routers hung from the ceiling as art. I handed her the dossier, Slack messages, memos, legal letters, metadata logs, and Darren's mimetic trail of plagiarism. She listened. She took notes. She said almost nothing, but I could see the voltage building behind her eyes. 2 weeks later, the piece dropped quietly. No front page, no viral hashtags, just a calm, brutal article titled, The Invisible Inventor, What Happens When Innovation Has a Face HR Doesn't Like. It didn't name Darren. It didn't have to. Anyone who'd been in that orbit recognized the pattern. I was Claire B., the woman who built something extraordinary and got fired for daring to own it. The article lit up corners of the internet Darren couldn't touch. Private Slack groups, women in tech forums, patent law Reddit. My inbox overflowed with strangers telling me their own versions of the same story, how their CTOs took the credit, how HR erased their names from grant proposals, how they'd built empires only to be told they were lucky to be invited inside. I felt exposed, yes. Every shadow in my apartment felt I wasn't some postscript in a corporate obituary. I was the headline. And the man who once told me I was support staff with a good attitude, he was now just a ghost hiding behind burner accounts and bad PR. Funny how quiet it gets when the lies stop echoing. Federal Court, Room 602. The kind of place that smells like recycled air, old legal pads, and generational disappointment. I sat behind the plaintiff's table, flanked by Madison and a junior associate who looked like she could bench press Darren's ego. My palms were ice. My spine was steel. I had spent years shrinking into boardroom chairs and smiling through theft, but not today. Darren strutted in like it was opening night on Broadway. Pinstripe suit, slick back hair, fake humility glued to his face. He shook hands with his attorneys like they were war buddies returning from a righteous crusade. I didn't look at him, didn't need to. I could smell the aftershave and desperation from 6 feet away. The lawsuit was simple on paper. Omega Tech Inc. v. Claire B. Allegation. Misappropriation of proprietary intellectual property. Developed on company time, using company assets, and therefore the rightful property of Omega Tech and its officer of record, Darren Gallagher. Simple if you ignored reality. Darren's side tried to paint a pretty picture. Claire was a disgruntled employee who, in her emotional distress, misunderstood the nature of collaborative innovation, his lawyer said, with all the sincerity of a wax museum docent. It presented screenshots of Slack messages where I'd mentioned pushing a prototype live and highlighted timestamps that they claimed overlapped with working hours. What they didn't know, we'd come armed like digital snipers. Madison called our first witness, an expert in digital forensics who, with the dry confidence of someone who'd testified in 3 cybercrime cases that month, broke down every commit log and server ping from my personal laptop. Line by line. We showed code development between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. Every file saved to external drives with traceable serial numbers IP logs that confirmed I was working from my own apartment. Not the office metadata from my Dell's OS showing 0 company software. Installed then came the receipts. Photos of my beat-up laptop with a coffee-stained keyboard, screenshots of my local test environments, and even my Uber Eats order history showing 1 a.m. pad thai deliveries on coding nights. Madison made a show of it. Miss Bennett, she said to me during direct examination, can you confirm if any part of this project was ever created, edited, or stored on Omega Tech hardware? No, I said, clear, loud, it never touched their network. That's when the cracks started to show. During Darren's deposition, he leaned back in his chair like a man used to getting away with things. But when Madison asked about previous innovations filed under his name, his posture shifted. She opened a folder. Exhibit D, this patent for a machine learning enhancement tool. Can you explain the development team behind this? Darren hesitated. I was the lead on that one. Were there any contributions from a DevOps engineer named Louis Chen? Pause. I mean, he might have offered feedback. He dropped a Slack transcript. Louis, hey Darren, this is the finalized repo. All 5 modules. Took all weekend. Let me know if you want me to walk you through it. It wasn't feedback, it was authorship. Madison smiled like a woman about to unhinge a predator. Over the next hour, she walked Darren through 5 patents. One by one, we showed silent hands behind them, junior staff, support engineers, and even an intern, whose contributions were never acknowledged. A pattern emerged. Darren had a habit of collecting brilliance and stamping his name on it like a tax. He started sweating, actually sweating. His face went blotchy. His lawyer tried to pivot, object, stall, but it was too late. The courtroom wasn't buying it anymore. By the end of the session, the judge leaned forward and asked the question that snapped the silence in half. Mr. Gallagher, are you aware of the legal definition of willful misrepresentation under federal patent law? Darren looked like a man realizing he'd just walked into a minefield wearing clown shoes. Me? I exhaled for the first time all day, not because the battle was over, but because for the first time in this entire nightmare, I knew the tide had turned. And I wasn't the one drowning anymore. It started with a voicemail, garbled, nervous, from a blocked number. Hey, Claire. You don't know me? Well, you might remember me from QA last year. Darren? He made me delete stuff, metadata, off a patent doc. He said it was cleanup before submission, but I kept copies. I need to talk to someone. Please don't tell anyone I called. Madison and I played it 3 times in her office, the tinny speakerphone distorting the panic in the poor kid's voice. She looked at me over her glasses like a school principal who'd just caught the valedictorian dealing blackjack. Claire, she said slowly, this is bigger than your patent now. 2 days later, that QA tech, anonymous in court filings as Employee X, testified in a closed session. Under oath, he described how Darren summoned him late one night to sanitize a shared Google Doc before filing. That doc, provisional patent for a machine learning tool later valued at $1.8 million in licensing. The employee had been instructed to remove all user edit histories and replace internal attributions with Darren's initials. He complied, sort of. He also saved a full version of the doc to his encrypted personal drive, which he handed to the court. And that's when the bottom fell out. The judge didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He simply frowned, reviewed the evidence, and ordered an independent audit of Omega Tech's last 7 patent filings. The court appointed a forensic analyst, former NSA, wore a suit like it was body armor, and smiled like he'd already found blood under the floorboards. 2 weeks of digging turned up 5 suspicious patents with altered metadata. 5. Not just mine, not just Louis Chen's. One belonged to a disabled intern from their summer program who'd written a GPU optimization module as part of his college thesis. Darren had taken that code and filed it as a legacy process enhancement, claiming full authorship. The intern didn't even know it had been submitted. When Madison saw the audit report, she went quiet. Not triumphant, not smug, just still. This isn't a lawsuit anymore, she murmured. It's a damn crime scene. He filed a motion for sanctions so hard it could have cracked marble, citing deliberate fraud, manipulation of federal filings, and ongoing corporate malfeasance. Madison included sworn testimony, metadata logs, chain of custody documents, and enough internal emails to bury Darren's career under 6 tons of legal sediment. The next day, Darren's legal team requested a private mediation meeting. We said no, because this wasn't going to end in a boardroom handshake and a signed NDA. I sat in the back of the courtroom as news of the audit leaked, watched the reporters trickle in, watched the Omega Tech Board release a carefully neutral statement about taking allegations seriously. Watched Darren walk in behind his lawyers with the posture of a man who just realized the spotlight is not the same as daylight. His hands shook as he adjusted his tie. I'd never seen his hands shake before. For years, this man had towered over every conversation, every meeting, every idea. His voice was always the loudest. His signature always the first line on every patent application. His name always etched into other people's victories like graffiti on marble. Now he was just a man in a $2,000 suit, standing at the edge of a cliff he carved himself, trying to plug the cracks in his foundation with duct tape and spin. Out. But the kind that says, the truth has weight. And for once, it's not mine to carry alone. The court at the audit reports detailing 5 years of stolen work buried under corporate branding and executive vanity. And then he spoke. In light of the submitted evidence, this court finds that the Raven Code patent was developed independently by Claire Bennett, outside of her official duties, with personal equipment and personal time, and was subsequently misrepresented in a provisional filing by Darren Gallagher and Omega Tech Inc. He paused. This misrepresentation was not incidental. It was intentional, systemic, and in breach of both intellectual property law and the plaintiff's employment protections under federal labor code. The gavel never sounded louder. Just like that, the patent was mine. My name, my work, my signature, my legacy reclaimed from the wreckage of corporate theft and turned into something real, something publicly mine. No more whispers, no more gaslight gloss over my contribution. Then came the financial judgment. Darren, personally and through Omega Tech, was ordered to pay $200,000 per quarter in royalties for every deployment of Raven Code. 4 payments a year, every year, until the license expired or the company stopped using it. And with their infrastructure built around it, that wasn't happening anytime soon. The number didn't hit me at first, not really. It just sat there in the air, like a balloon too heavy to float but too surreal to ignore. Then the kicker dropped. Judge Morales set down the ruling and looked directly at Darren. Given the evidence of systemic fraud in Omega Tech's prior patent filings, this court is referring the matter to the Department of Justice's Office of Inspector General and requesting a formal inquiry into corporate intellectual property practices. Mr. Gallagher, as the named officer on all filings under review, you will be held personally liable for all findings of misconduct. That was the moment Darren cracked. He tried to stand, then sat back down. His lawyer whispered something to him, probably about appeals and damage control and media strategy. But Darren's face had gone waxy, pale like sour milk. His hands were fidgeting, but his eyes weren't focused on anything. Just blank, the kind of look you see in men who always thought the rules were optional. I should have felt triumphant. Should have screamed or cried, or thrown my arms around Madison and shouted something cinematic like we did it. But I didn't. I just sat there, still, breathing, because victory, when it finally arrives after years of erosion, doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with silence, with stillness, with the slow realization that the weight on your chest isn't holding you down anymore, it's just gone. Outside, reporters gathered. I saw them through the window, already prepping mics and unfolding tripods. Madison told me we could make a statement or slip out the side. I nodded, unsure which part. Finally returned with interest. And yet, even with my name cleared, even with the royalties locked in and the justice system finally pointing its flashlight at the roaches, I wasn't at peace. Because the machine that made Darren possible, it was still humming, still handing out awards to the loudest voices in the room, while people like me built the code in silence. But the silence was breaking, and my voice, it was just getting started. The first royalty check cleared on a Tuesday. I watched the notification slide across my phone screen while standing in the self-checkout line at Target. $200,000. No fanfare, no confetti, just digits, clean, sharp, undeniable. Darren's name was in the memo line. That part made me laugh out loud, in public. Some woman in a Buckeyes hoodie gave me side-eye while scanning laundry detergent. I just smiled. 2 days later, the licensing deals started rolling in. Google, IBM, even Tesla, though their contract had an AI clause so dense it read like alien scripture. My inbox was a jungle of NDAs, VC inquiries, and quick intro calls from people who'd never answered a single one of my emails back when I was Claire from Ops. Madison helped me filter the noise. We inked 3 deals, non-exclusive, high margin, tight IP control. I kept the license fees generous enough to attract the sharks, but tight enough to remind them, this isn't a buffet, this is mine. My name was on the patent, my name was in the press. My name was on the damn checks, and Darren vanished. Not just from LinkedIn, where his account deactivated for maintenance a week after the ruling. Gone from the company site, scrubbed from the board listings, placed by a new CTO with a clean resume and the dead eyes of someone hired to mop up after a scandal. I got a bottle of champagne in the mail from Louis Chen. No note, just a post-it that read, "You earned this." P.S. Darren blocked me on Venmo. But the real payoff came months later, on a cold morning, quiet and unremarkable, when I walked up to a brick-and-glass storefront with a fresh logo etched in the door, Bennett & Co. Technical IP Consulting. It was mine, not just the office. The mission, the space, the voice. I unlocked the door, flipped on the lights. And there he was, Nate, the junior dev who'd first warned me about Darren's pitch to Gen X Soft. Now freshly hired, caffeinated, and grinning under a flannel shirt that still had the clearance tag dangling. "Client call in 10, he said. "Coffee first," I replied. We sat in the glass meeting room, the one with no corner seats, no hierarchies, and watched the world outside keep moving. A client pitch deck sat open on my laptop. Legal strategy bullet points scribbled on the whiteboard. I didn't just have a seat at the table now, I built the damn table. That's when the email came in. No subject line. Just a name I didn't recognize. I clicked it. "Hi Claire, I read your story." My boss forged my name off a prototype we built together. She called it a streamlining necessity. I don't know who to trust. I think I'm next. Please tell me what to do. I looked at the screen, looked at Nate, then leaned back in my chair, cracked my knuckles, and started typing. Because sometimes justice isn't just won, it's passed forward. And I wasn't just a survivor of Darren's theft anymore. I was the antidote to it. This time, I wasn't whispering. I was leading. It's one thing to catch someone stealing your work, but it's another to beat them at their own game, using the system they thought they controlled. This story is a reminder that silence doesn't mean weakness. It means preparation. Sometimes, the best revenge is letting your name be the one carved into the legacy they tried to steal. You're the real MVPs of the office jungle. Thanks for watching. Smash that subscribe button, or the coffee pot might just forget your next brew.